Before COVID-19, I worked in an office at Green Desk, a co-working space shared with other tenants, mostly in the fields of media, tech, and other creative industries. My main client is a developer contractor who owns several commercial and residential properties in Williamsburg, an adjoining Brooklyn neighborhood to Greenpoint, and a 30-minute walk from the apartment. This neighborhood is very much ahead of the curve in terms of gentrification. All along the waterfront, new constructions, Williamsburg and Greenpoint, with their former art and performance spaces, and the accompanying cheap rent of yesteryear, have long given way to streets of upscale stores and entire blocks of new-build chrome and glass condominiums. Green Desk is what some might call a shared co-working space. For a monthly rental fee, you get copier, scanner, and more shared communal space, complete with TV, comfy couch, a kitchen island, and of course the shared kitchen, shared fridge. Don't like the location? Not a problem. They likely have another one closer to you, another massive building. In the week preceding New York lockdown, this normally bustling office space was all but empty of tenants, as many companies decided to stop paying for rental space that they weren't using and bailed. My client's 4 commercial spaces also became vacant: a billiards hall and bar, a boutique hair salon, coffee shop, clothing store, now gone, with no indication as to when they would come back, and no clue as to the conditions that would even make that thinkable in a global pandemic. My last day was Friday the 13th of March. About a month later, he called to ask if I could work for him. I said I would. I used my immediate time back at Green Desk to release my debut album and to record a new song I'd written. I put up a post on Facebook asking if anyone wanted to contribute backing vocals, just a few words about how they were bearing up under lockdown. Then decided a video would be in order, so asked the same people to send me a few shots of what lockdown looked like for them. It truly did seem like the end of the world, or the terrible beginning of another. The sensation of finding out about a recent death of a friend, and now suddenly things seem disorienting. That surely there must have been more time left for them. How the doctors must be wrong, and that your friend was still living somehow. How odd it seemed to be mourning something whose hand you were still holding on to. We were all on the verge of a different type of alienation that no one could quite place, and yet everyone experienced together. For 5 weeks, I continued to walk to work. Our building owner owns much of the block, and has since the 1970s. In 2013, the taxi medallions in New York City cost around $1.3 million. As of 2018, they fell to about 160 grand. It is anyone's guess how many taxis the nearby taxi stand has. 150 taxis? There seem to be at least 80. Once I counted all of Provost Street, near the Newton Creek wastewater treatment plant, both sides of the street, all cabs. They don't count as commercial vehicles somehow, so there's nothing to enforce if they park on the residential blocks of Greenpoint. This leads to a situation much like musical chairs with the alternate side parking rules when they're in effect, with people sitting in their car for hours, waiting for the street sweeper, then promptly snagging another parking spot. Walking to work, I would often take Green Street to Franklin Street, thereby avoiding Manhattan Ave, which had more pedestrian traffic. Walking past India Street and the ferry port, unsure if it was still running or had plans to return. Taking the path along the Bushwick Inlet and the location of our long-promised park, wondering whether work would ever be completed or whether efforts to open it would be galvanized by this unexpected need for more outdoor public space. And continuing further south onto Kent Ave and the new condos and high-rise complexes that had come to dominate the skyline looking east from Manhattan over the last 10 years. A view which gave the waterfront the obscene quality of looking like Flatiron. In mid-May, and with 4 vacant storefronts, my client decided to leave the Green Desk and temporarily use one of the commercial spaces as an office. I admit I was hesitant at first, but I had to realistically advise him that it was the best option, given an unlikely future. So I packed up the filing cabinets, furniture, computers, and we made several trips over to the new space. 150 Grand Street is a building in the middle of the block, between Bedford Ave and Berry Ave. It consists of 2 storefronts. One of them is the base on which 6 rent-stabilized apartment units sit. It is located in the zip code 11249, and the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in the area is $3,072. However, tenants in this building pay within the ranges of $900 to $1,800 a month, well below market value. Affordable housing and rent stabilization laws allow for this. However, these are often abused. See also the 421A program, which allows for massive tax incentives on new constructions, often with property owners not paying property taxes for 10 years or 25 years, merely for providing apartments that fall within the affordable range. The new office was the former location of Best Made, a bespoke men's clothing retailer where you could get a leather wallet, flannel shirt, and buy a custom-made hatchet with your initials engraved on it. And before that, the Kabbalah Center. This was ours now, or rather mine. A few days later, the 2 adjoining commercial storefronts had become official, and I had a name for it, Grand Zero. I knew I had a blank slate, an empty canvas with 20-foot high ceiling-to-floor windows, 4 of them that faced a heavy pedestrian traffic area, and that was just the facade. Inside were 2 large rooms separated by 2 heavy glass doors, allowing for a distinction between office space and performance space. Storefront A. Storefront B, the old coffee shop space, was an L-shaped 4,000 square foot warehouse featuring 40-foot high ceilings with exposed wooden beams, perfect for shows, recording, performances, and everything else that was not at all happening during this time. It wouldn't be until late August it would finally get used, a collaboration between friends who wanted to use the space to record a live album as a benefit for another friend who'd been making the rounds to older and aging jazz heads in the community since the start of COVID, bringing them cooked meals, buying groceries for them, people who were such a mainstay in the life of New York City, but had no other social safety net in the most difficult years facing them. Back in mid-May, in Storefront A, I had taken full advantage of the space I had holed myself up in, making use of the constant access to seriously think about what a post-COVID art space might look like and should offer. I found a table on the street a few blocks away and dragged it to the new office. The next day I took a cab up for work, loaded with CDs, tapes, records of my work, and the works of friends and collaborators, and any other promotional material I could think of. In this new time, I would work 3 days a week and use the other 4 to perform solo in the space to a rotating crowd, which seemed happy to remain outside the storefront and watch for a while, before leaving and making space for other onlookers. I plugged in my kit, a microKORG, looper, sampler, distortion pedal, small mixer, cheap mic, and my electric viola, and would play on the weekends. There were several marches down Bedford Avenue following the death of George Floyd, with vigils usually held on Friday evenings down at McCarran Park. I regularly left the doors to the space open, so was able to offer support to protesters who needed a place to stop along the route. There's not much about my work that could be considered narrative, because I generally steer clear of it. I think everyone at that time was searching for a way to articulate what they felt, and particularly artists who'd been struggling anyways with the creative process and with lockdown, and how wrong and selfish it seemed to make art that wasn't directly political. For me, improvisation, musical, unmediated response was a way of working around it. I asked my friend and longtime collaborator, Martin B.C., to join me. We played for just under an hour, with Martin holding up signs of the names of people who'd been killed by police. Before the pandemic, I'd run a sound-guided meditation series called the Lunary, held generally on or around the full moon. Most were recorded by Martin, live in front of an audience at BC Studios, and it helped to foster a community that regularly attended these sessions. I was eager to return to that, but live events were completely off the books, or at least for them to continue, every aspect would have to be totally reconsidered. For the summer solstice, I asked friends of mine to do a Lunary ensemble in this new configuration. Weeks prior, I had marked out spots on the floor of storefront A, 7 feet away from the next. So doing the math, I figured I could safely accommodate 18 people in the front space, another 18 in the back, down from the regular 200 that the CO allows for. Storefront B could easily take on 100 people, down from its 500 max capacity. It was no matter. No one came into the space. New Yorkers are quick to take you into their hearts, to keep you at arm's length, to watch from a distance. And I was definitely not going to be famous on social media for getting my friends sick or dead. In the time that I've been in Ground Zero, it has functioned as a record store, art gallery, poetry and performance space, reading room and bookshop, music venue, recording studio, and most recently the site of an art installation, a piece that considers the vacuum left by the rich who fled New York City at the start of COVID-19, the income bracket who facilitated not just the housing crisis, but the crisis of space. I'm concerned that even when we do return to a normal work-centric reality, even when local businesses do reopen, that public sentiment will still err on the side of safety, and that these places will disappear. The places that were able to withstand rent hikes and coronavirus will vanish because we're still not convinced that the threat is gone. We don't yet have indoor dining, but schools will be in session. There are no movie theaters, but gyms, their shared, sweaty workout equipment is okay to use. The landscape is already dominated by boutique hotels. In Williamsburg, it costs you money doing nothing, even just standing still. We can't have concerts and venues, but we can sit in packed trains to commute to a job that is eternally depriving us of the time and space we require to function as self-determining, creative individuals. But my main concern throughout COVID-19 has been that we won't remember how to be close again, how everything will be lost that was gained, more public space, more space for gatherings, more support of local businesses, more street closures, more pedestrian walkways. These will disappear, and it seems cruel to present this cynically, fatalist. It hasn't happened yet. But as quickly as these adjustments came in with the tide, so will they disintegrate, because we're not careful, because we didn't fight hard enough. And real change is stressful. We need more places to go and not spend money. We need more time together. These commercial spaces will be rented soon, as they aren't currently income-producing properties, and they should be, I'm told. The asking price for storefront A is $12,000 a month, while storefront B is listed at $32,000 per month.